Psalm 1 opens up in verses 1 through 4 saying, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all he does, he prospers." What a sweet thing, a cool picture that God gives us through the psalmist that is kind of helping us to see how we can be firmly rooted in him. I've been watching a lot of survival shows lately, and the theme that I see over and over that they start their experience in the wilderness by seeking out shelter. Then, as much as they can, seeking out a good source of water. But the main thing, the biggest thing is building up these shelters. A place that they can find refuge, that they can rest, that they can have protection from all the harsh environments around them. Whether that's from predators, whether that's from even just harsh conditions, the shelter is so important. And I see a parallel here, but in Psalm 91, verses 1 through 4 says, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his wings, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a buckler." What a sweet picture that God's faithfulness, his character, the truth of who he is, it becomes a shield and a refuge for us. And just like in Psalm chapter 1, he who delights in the law of the Lord, and on his laws those who dwell and meditate day and night, that's when we are like a tree firmly rooted next to streams of water, next to living water. And that's how Jesus describes himself, as the living water, the well that does not run dry, the well that continues to satisfy our thirsts and our cravings and our needs and our wants and our desires. He is the one that does not leave us wanting more. He alone does not leave us empty and dry and dehydrated spiritually. But the world will. And so in the midst of all this, I'm encouraged to kind of live my life. I know we're not in these, deserted wilderness experiences. That's not how we live. But as Psalm 63 puts it, we do spiritually live in a dry and barren wasteland where there is no water apart from Jesus, apart from the Lord. And so my challenge and encouragement for us today is that we would stop, that you would get some time today in prayer with the Lord, asking to grow what it may look like or what he may have for you to build your spiritual shelter in him, in the truth of his character, in the truth of his promises, in the truth of who he is, while the world around us is constantly going to be lying to us. And I even encourage you, if you want to just Google verses about God's character, verses maybe about God's faithfulness, maybe about the truth of who he is. Or maybe it's just even searching verses about what it looks like. What does it look like? What are verses about finding shelter in him? Because I think this is a really neat concept, but it takes effort. Just like the survivalists in the shows, it takes effort to build up a shelter, but then it takes effort to maintain that shelter. It takes effort and time to continue to keep that shelter firmly grounded and to keep it as a protection. But then I love this picture that it's those who dwell in the shelter of the Most High, who abide in the shadow of the Almighty. Because I don't know about you, but even in the harshest conditions, even during the summer out here, I'm in the shade right now, and it is so comfortable. There's a light breeze, and I feel the breeze. And in the same way, God desires for us to rest in the shadow of his wing, to be built up by him, and to seek the shadow and refuge of his strength, of who he is, his character. Because the world around us, again, is constantly changing, constantly lying to us. But it's in him where we can be firmly rooted in streams of living water, by the streams of water that do not run dry and do not leave us empty. but they satisfy every need that we have because we've been created for this relationship with the Almighty. So that's my prayer today, is that we would all take some time to settle, to just be, to dwell in the presence of the Almighty, and to seek to pay attention and to build up our shelter, our spiritual shelter in Him, by knowing more deeply the truth of His character, by knowing and experiencing more deeply the truth of His love and His mercy. So thank you guys, love you guys, can't wait to see you soon.